Hi, and welcome back. I'm Mike Quincy.
I'm Ryan Pizlakowski.
And I'm Alex Nizick.
So as Talking Cars podcast viewers and listeners know, we test a lot of crazy cars here at the track. We've got hands-free driving assist features, all the latest EVs, you name it. But sometimes we need to kind of have a wake-up call and talk about vehicles that are a touch more, shall we say, realistic, which brings us to the car that we're going to talk about today, the 2023 Honda HR-V. This is the second generation HR-V, replacing a little-loved version, which was based on the Honda Fit subcompact. It had responsive handling, but its 141 horsepower engine was completely outmatched, but it did deliver about 29 miles per gallon overall. So I was completely prepared to be underwhelmed with this new one. But I'm going to kind of throw it to Alex and say, what did you think?
Yeah, so I actually haven't had any experience with the older car, so I'm coming into this HR-V just, this is my first time with it. So I found it to be a totally competent, pleasant subcompact crossover. And I know the original HR-V kind of had some oddities with it, maybe even unloved, as you mentioned there, Mike, but this just kind of felt like a mini CR-V to me. It was so normal in so many ways, but that's a good thing, right? It kind of just serves its purpose really well, comfortable, and yeah, I just thought it was really good. And I think maybe the HR-V as it stands now is kind of mid-pack as far as our ratings of subcompact crossovers go. I could see this, being elevated a little bit. Maybe it's not a complete, knock out of the park, number one out of the category, but certainly better than the outgoing version. And so this is going to compete with things like the Chevrolet Trailblazer, the Mazda CX-30, Hyundai Kona, and most recently we tested the Toyota Corolla Cross, which is kind of using the Corolla name, but again, small subcompact crossover. And so I personally, with that in mind, I was more impressed with the HR-V than I was the Corolla Cross.
So thankfully, this new HR-V is based on the redesigned Honda Civic platform, which brings a longer wheelbase. It's more powerful. It's got 158 horsepower, which is a good bump up. It's hooked up to a continuously variable transmission, and it also gets an independent rear suspension. We bought an all-wheel drive sport model, no options outside of the Nordic Forest paint. The bottom line is $28,790. So, Honda's mission here: affordable, fuel efficient, probably reliable, safe. Ryan, what do you think?
Fantastic.
Wow.
You said it earlier. I mean, it's a breath of fresh air. Sometimes we drive these cars that make us want to go nuts because the controls are overwhelming. I mean, they might look nice and be fancy, but they're just not easy to get in and go kind of cars. And this is a get in and go kind of car. It's nice and easy to drive. It's got a normal shifter. I thought it was great. I mean, I think back at the old HR-V and I don't have very good thoughts at all. I mean, it was tinny. It was underpowered. So you were constantly winding the motor out. It was loud. It was obnoxious. We've hammered that enough already, but this, getting into it, I guess I wasn't expecting a lot. I had overheard a few people say they were pleasantly surprised by it. So I was optimistic a little bit. And it even surpassed those optimistic expectations I had because it was so bad before. I think it rides quite well. It's a little firm, but it's really not bad. I mean, I think it does a nice job dampening and just keep controlling the body while you're driving. The steering's got a nice weight to it. It turns in well. It's just a nice car to just get in and go. And the thing I think I noticed the most was it feels substantial. And I talk about this sometimes. It doesn't. Some of these cheaper cars, I'm going to call it cheaper. $28,790 is a lot of money. I totally get it. But that is cheap by today's standards, right? Especially for a smaller SUV that has four doors and is as nice as this one, right? It's a nice value. I think it's a fantastic value. The car it really didn't let me down. The controls are fairly simple. The screen had a little delay, I thought. Going through some of the menus, it kind of was a little slow, but it's simple. It's still very simple.
You absolutely hit on it. I mean, my notes, it's like simple controls.
Right.
And what also surprised me was the interior. I mean, a number of padded surfaces, exposed stitching, nice switch gear.
Yeah, and this is the mid-level, right? It's not the base, but it's also not the most expensive one you can get. And again, I'll bring up the Corolla Cross just as kind of a and not to beat on it too much, but that car you get in and you're kind of like, okay, this feels a little bit phoned in, might be aggressive, but just very plasticky and things just fit together okay, and not really much design to it, I guess. Whereas in this HRV, you know, the center console kind of has a really cool design to it. And like you said, it's padded. It has some like accent stitching on it. The seats had a unique texture and kind of pattern. Yeah. So, and then of course the switchgear that comes over from the Civic that was really nice in the Civic is also really nice here. So I don't know, it works out to be quite a nice package.
It brought me back a little bit to more of a what I'll call like a classic Honda. It's just simple, right? And I keep going back to, you know, the value in that the feel of this car. It has that like heft to it. You know, like if you get in a and I'm not comparing apples and apples here, but like when you get in a BMW and you shut the door, it's like, okay, I'm in a nicer car.
Thuds.
This for the money I thought was a step above certainly the Corolla Cross. And honestly, looking at that list of all the competitors, I picked this already. This is of all the ones you listed, I picked this one already over them.
Yeah.
You know, I put about 100 miles on it, and I was happy the whole time.
And it brings up, you know, a nice, you know, pleasant, friendly reminder. One of the most frequently asked questions that we get is, how do you decide what trim levels to test? And in our test program, you know, we ask the manufacturers, we do some research, we find out what is the most kind of mainstream, what is the volume leader for a trim level. And in this case of the HRV, it's the Sport. So that's why occasionally we get to rent other trim lines from manufacturers to get an idea of what the, you know, it's almost always a higher trim, but so it kind of puts our test car in perspective. And it is a lot of value for the money. In terms of driving it, I thought the engine was you know, pretty adequate for cruising. If you're just on the highway, the cruise control on, it's okay. When you need to dip into it, when you need to boot it, then it gets a little noisy. You kind of show the limits of this 158 horsepower. But for kind of normal day to day, Ryan, I'm totally with you. This is a really, really easy car.
Yeah. You almost can't complain about the power in a sense that you know, they got to trim some stuff out here or there, right? And I thought it did a great job when you're merging and you stomp on it. Sure, the CVT winds out and the motor revs, and that's whatever. But day-to-day driving, I was very happy with it.
It makes me sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to say, I'll be a nerd real quick. I actually looked at the power to weight ratio of the old one versus this one because the old one was so slow, or, well, you guys are telling me it was. So the old one, and this is using our data when we weigh all our cars when we buy them. So it's not just a manufacturer spec. So that old one that we bought was 3,044 pounds and it had 141 horsepower. So that means it's got 21.6 pounds to move for every horsepower it has. This new one, it gained 235 pounds, so it weighs 3,279 pounds. Ours does, but it has more power, the 158 you mentioned. So that gets 20.8 pounds per horsepower. So it is a little bit faster. It's certainly not going to blow the doors off anything, but there's some improvement there. So, but it gained a little weight.
Yeah, it feels better, though.
It does.
The way it's tuned, it feels
really
better.
Smooth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the reason why super producer Dave Abrams allows us to do this podcast is because we are nerds. But I love it. This is you guys are my people. It makes me think how much better this HRV is. Maybe Honda did take to heart our criticisms of the last version. A lot of publishers tested that HRV and probably came to the same conclusions. So they're like, okay, we gotta work on this. And I really think they did do their homework on this redesigned model. And just a reminder, these are just our first impressions. We haven't done our full testing yet, but it will be available soon. So definitely check back with consumerreports.org for more updates on the HRV and other and to get our full test results. And I'm gonna kind of wrap this segment up unless you guys have anything more to say about this little Honda.
Do you miss the magic seat of the first one? The folding rear seat, that was like kind of its unique selling proposition, right? Is that rear bench, I think it could fold up or something because they mounted the fuel tank somewhere else. So you could end up with this crazy storage space for how small the car was.
Yeah. I don't remember, and I don't miss it. I didn't even pay attention. I was so
Put a
disgusted
nail
with
in
that
that
car. Yeah.
No, it's funny, Alex. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up because I was looking at the digital logbook of our current HRV, and I completely forgot about that.
That's funny. Okay.
So, but again, I'm with Ryan. The car, the first version was so incredibly painful to drive that I wanted to erase it all from my memories.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear from people who own it whether they use that feature or not.
I know. I say hats off to Honda. I mean, here's another small SUV that I'll recommend to people, assuming it doesn't have a disastrous reliability history.
Right.
Right. Well, we'll have more as we rack up the miles and do our testing. And great discussion on this little car. And if you're in the market for a small subcompact SUV, might want to put this on your short list. Which brings us to our question of the day. We love your questions. Text 30-second videos. Send them all to talkingcars@icloud.com. That's talkingcars@icloud.com. And we're really lucky because we have a video question today. This is Ned.
Hey, Talking Cars. I want to hark back on the previous week's episode regarding the Acura Integra. I would like to know your guys' thoughts on the Mazda 3 Turbo versus the Acura Integra and which one you guys would pick. Because in my mind, the Acura Integra and the Mazda 3 are actually more in relation to one another than versus like a Audi A3 or BMW 2 Series. But anyways, the Mazda 3 to me seems like a better buy because for the same price or less, depending on configuration, you get more power, all-wheel drive. You can get it as a sedan or a hatchback. You get arguably better styling inside and out, in my opinion. But yeah, definitely would like to know your guys' thoughts on that. Specifically Ryan's opinion, because I feel like him and I are probably in the same age demographic. But yeah, looking forward to your guys' opinion on that. Keep up the good work. Thanks.
So this was a really fun question. Mazda 3 Turbo versus an Acura Integra. Oh, this is going to be great. I just know this is going to be great. And Ryan, he specifically called you out because
I know. I feel pressure.
I think you guys are bros now. So
Careful what you say.
What are your thoughts on this?
So it's actually kind of it's kind of an easy one for me. I would pick the Mazda 3 Turbo. And he even mentions I think it would be a better value. The regular Mazda 3, we didn't test a turbo, but it's practical now. This Mazda 3 Turbo, you can get it all-wheel drive, you can get it in a hatch, sedan, whatever. I would get in a hatch with all-wheel drive. That's right up my alley. The Integra, the Integra is it's a nice car, and don't get me wrong, it's got that sporty feel to it. But the Mazda 3, that's a hard one to beat, I think.
Hard one to pass up. Right?
Yeah, I really do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Alex.
Yeah, I'm not really gonna argue, Ryan. I love this question because you think naturally like the Integra might be Audi A3, BMW 2 Series, the front wheel drive coupe one, but it's not so obvious. It's kind of nuanced, but Mazda's going for that more premium interior lately with a little bit more premium experience for kind of a lower cost. So I think it's an awesome comparison. But yeah, I would probably gravitate towards the Mazda myself. I went back and looked at my notes from that car, and I wrote something about not wanting to give that car back, which I'll admit doesn't really happen all that often. But I think the big decision here is whether you want the turbo engine with the manual transmission that you can get with the Integra, or if you want the all-wheel drive with the Mazda, right? Because you can't get the turbo Mazda plus manual. That they won't let you do that. So you can get the all-wheel drive.
You're breaking the rules right now. You're bringing because you're bringing in a different car. He specifically said Mazda 3 Turbo versus the Integra.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you got it. If you want the Mazda Turbo, then you can't have the manual, right? Where you could with the Integra. So I'm saying that choice, you have to make that choice. He didn't really specify whether he was into the manual or not. And I also would go with a hatch, Ryan. For sure. And just
it's more practical, yeah.
Yeah, the Mazda gives you a lot more choices too, whether you go with the hatch or sedan or all those things. So
sure.
Yeah.
Well, it would be a boring podcast if we all agreed. So I'm going to completely disagree with both you guys. I priced out a top trim Mazda 3 Turbo, the 2.5 Turbo Premium Plus, came into about $36,410. versus $37,395 for the Acura A-Spec with the technology. So it's less than $1,000. Now I can understand kind of your perception of Acura and competing with maybe BMW and Audi and stuff like that. But when you look at the price of a top level Mazda 3 Turbo, it's pretty darn close to Acura. So
Exactly.
maybe we take the perceptions of what a luxury car or a luxury brand is supposed to be and just, throw it out the window. But for me, I'm going with the Acura Integra because of the manual transmission. That's it. Hard stop. That is the deal here. No, listen, Ned, this is the vehicle guy. Don't listen to these other guys. I mean, definitely go with the Acura. We're always on a mission to save the manual transmissions. Honda makes a great one. The manual shifter in our tested Honda Civic SI is really good. Full disclosure, I did have a 1993 Acura Integra with the manual. And I loved that car. I loved this one. I don't think the Acura Integra gets as much love as it should. But there's absolutely no question in my mind that the car of this little contest, you got to award the Acura Integra the A+. Put it on the top of your list.
Yeah, and another benefit of going with the Integra is if you do get that top level with the manual, you get the adaptive shocks, which kind of helps. One of the problems with that car in its standard form is the ride is just, it's okay. It's a little stiff. It beats you up a little.
Yeah. It helps mitigate it. It doesn't fix it. No.
It doesn't fix it. It just makes it a little better. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I do agree that with you guys, what you said, the interiors of the Mazda 3 is really nice. It's really nice for how much you're getting. I will kind of give you guys a subtle reminder that the controls of the Mazda 3 are still pretty bad. That central controller is kind of lousy. And I know I've spent a lot of time in our Acura Integra, which is not the top of the line, but by far the controls in the new Integra are, in my opinion, are much better than the Mazdas. That's another feather in the cap of the Acura. And looking at the numbers, the performance numbers, probably going to be very similar in terms of horsepower, 0 to 60 timing, fuel economy, kind of a wash. So, like I said, I thought this question was awesome. I think it's a great discussion. I'm glad that there are cars like this that are still available to the consumer, and I applaud any automaker that continues to make smallish, sporty cars, and definitely ones with manual transmissions.
Absolutely.
I think we're going to put the wraps on this particular podcast. Just a subtle reminder, this podcast was expertly produced by super producer Dave Abrams, incredibly expertly edited by Andrew Belize. These guys are the best in the business, and we're lucky to have them. So always check the show notes if you want more information on the vehicles and the topics that we discussed. Just a reminder, keep your questions coming. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. That's TalkingCars@iCloud.com. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.